Good morning, everyone. It is 9:30 and I'm going to call this committee meeting of Finance and Admin to order. Has roll call been taken, Connie?
Through you, Chair. Yes, roll call has been taken.
Thank you very much. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Can I get an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on September 10th? Moved by Councillor Hunt, second by Councillor Sweet. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. All right, with that, we will move on to the administration report. Paul, I'll turn this over to you, and you do have an addendum to your report as well, right?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. Chair, through you to committee, the first item in the administration report is the community messaging with respect to the vigilance campaign. That is something we've been working on through our EOC group as well as other partners out there. The focus of that has been, as numbers have risen with COVID-19, we have done a blitz on social media and on radio and in local media. Again, the second significant focus of that, though, has also been on VTAC, with significant effort being placed on that to make the public aware of the services that are available, as well as making sure that folks are aware of the number and how to get a hold of it should they need to. So that continues to be the focus of our ad campaign. We had our live streaming COVID briefing with the warden and panel on YouTube and Cogeco. Great response there as well. I think I read here that we had well over 1,500 views, and I think that was a significant success in terms of getting the message out to the public. So well done. Again, Renfrew County Virtual Triage and Assessment Letter Writing Campaign. We are trying to encourage members of the public to write to the Minister of Health and others and speak to their positive experiences with VTAC to make sure that those decision makers at the provincial level are aware of the importance and the impact that VTAC has had on our community, helping citizens who don't have primary care or who cannot access primary care, making that available to them, and how important that is, and how, you know, the one silver lining that has come out of COVID has been the creation of this service to members of our community. If I may, I'll move on to item 2, Chair. The diploma in municipal administration. Again, congratulations and hats off to Mr. Kelly. Very successful in completing the municipal admin program. In fact, he was in the his grade was 85%, which puts him on the dean's list for the program. So well done, Craig, and congratulations. If I may, Chair, sorry.
I'm just saying thank you, Paul.
But you're very welcome.
What happened to the other 15%, Craig?
No, that I had to reach 85. I think I was about 98%, 96%, but that's okay.
Better than Bluto.
Item 3, Chair, I'll continue on. Reallocating capital budget. The Health Committee will be recommending to County Council that approximately $50,000 in savings in the parking lot repair capital budget be used to replace the required but unbudgeted for cook line kitchen equipment replacement. It's a 6-burner stove, estimated cost of around $40,000. This was debated and reviewed by Health Committee earlier in the week, and is being brought forward to FNA as information, and the resolution will be brought forward to County Council for further debate and approval. Additional full-time PSW positions. I can ask Ms. Sheedy to speak to this, Chair, if that's appropriate. She will do it far more justice than I will.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you. Good morning, members of FNA. If I could ask you to turn to page 8 in your electronic package, it contains the business case. I will start, though, with the recommendation that Health Committee approved yesterday and is going forward to County Council. that this committee recommend to County Council that the full-time personal support worker complement is increased by 3 positions at Bonisher Manor and 8 positions at Miramichi Lodge and implemented as soon as possible at an estimated cost of $8,570 for Bonisher Manor and $30,799 for Miramichi Lodge, and further that the FNA committee be so advised. So the background, Madam Chair and committee, is that we see a need to increase our long-term care complement, our full-time complement. As I'm sure this committee is well aware, personal support workers are the backbone of the provision of long-term care. And we know that it's best for the resident in terms of resident continuity. The less personnel and the more often they work, the better for the residents, and for the staff themselves. Stable working conditions are always ideal. Through COVID, though it has certainly been spotlighted, the fact that many personnel working in long-term care across the province have to work part-time jobs because for more than one employer, because there isn't a surplus of full-time jobs. And so while the County Council made the astute decision to limit staff working in long-term care to one employer during the pandemic, and the province followed suit shortly thereafter, one unintended consequence is that while that is for sure the best thing related to infection prevention and control, what it means is when we post a part-time position, somebody that's already out there in the community working part-time for another organization can't accept a job for us. Right now, they have to choose one employer or the other. Even in non-COVID times, it's difficult to recruit because people don't want to give up the confirmation of hours they have from that other employer. And so for those reasons, we are recommending that we increase our full-time complement. On the next page, page 9, I'll just speak to why the numbers are what we are recommending. So we'll start with the fact that the provincial average is 41%. Right now, Bonisher, the full-time percentage is 30%, and at Miramichi Lodge it is 17%. So our goal was to improve, not necessarily to get to 41% in one fell swoop, but to work our way towards that. At Bonisher Manor, as I've indicated, it would mean increasing by 3 positions to get us to 33, at the Lodge by 8 positions to get us to 26%. The reason the percentages aren't exactly the same, there's a myriad of reasons, but obviously we're starting from a different starting place. But also we're cognizant of the current staff that we have, the vacant part-time hours that we have accessible to create, to take and transfer into a full-time job without, we don't want to lose any of the current staff that we have. So that's the reason for the numbers. And then if I could ask you to turn to the next page in terms of the financial considerations. For this budget year, obviously not a lot of time remaining, so fairly small amounts, a little over $1,000 at the Manor and a little over $5,000 at the Lodge. When we look at it on an annual basis, Mr. Foss was adamant that I provide to you the maximum financial liability we would have if every one of these new positions, if approved by County Council, were to take their maximum allocation of sick leave, which is 18 days per year, according to the CUPE collective agreement. And so that's why it's $8,000 at the Manor, and because there's more staff at the Lodge, it's almost $31,000. However, we do not budget to that amount, but full disclosure, that would be the maximum potential financial liability. And so I'll stop there, Madam Chair, if you want to continue with the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll do information items first, and then we'll do there are 2 recommendations. So I'm going to go back to information item number, thank you very much, by the way, Shelley. I'm going to go back to information item number 1, the vigilance campaign. I don't know why we don't just call these meetings COVID meetings now, but I think that this is an excellent, excellent, excellent thing to do. I feel like people are really getting lax, and we have to keep hammering them to stay vigilant. So are there any questions on that? Yes, Madam Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to let folks know that I will be doing the interview with My FM and Star 96 next Tuesday. I'm not sure when they're going to air it, but we'll do it then. And I certainly will be, it'll all be about VTAC and encouraging people to send letters to the Premier and to Minister Elliott. Basically, share your stories with your Premier kind of idea.
Excellent. Anything further on messaging? Seeing none. Number 2, Mr. Kelly's 85%. Congratulations, Craig.
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. And thank you to the county for ongoing support for these type of courses for all staff. It's worthy of noting that council did support me through this council and probably my previous council at Madawaska Valley for several years of taking this diploma course. So again, thank you very much for your trust in your staff.
Thank you for that. Madam Warden.
I just want to add my congratulations to Craig. And when you think about it, he did this. He's almost got perfect on it. I'm going to say more than the 85, Paul. But he did this while being the Director of Development and Property during a pandemic. I think that bodes well for his motivation as well as the dedication to the County of Renfrew. So congratulations, Craig.
Thanks very much, Warden. Much appreciated.
Yes, Councillor Brose.
I would also like to extend my congratulations to Craig. And just one question, I'm wondering now if Craig will be available for CAO positions in the lower tier municipalities.
It comes at a high price, right, Paul?
I think that's in response. Is Daniel here? Yes, there he is. Yep, county stole Daniel. It's open season. Yes, Councillor Sweet.
Just in response to Councillor Brose, the answer to that is no. He's going to stay with the county. I probably work as closely as anybody with Craig. I was chair of the Development of Property going back, I don't know how long, Craig, 4 or 5 years, something like that. So I certainly want to offer my congratulations to Craig. He's a hardworking individual, comes very prepared, and obviously he's been prepared for this particular situation as well, and it's reflected in the marks. The 15% that he lost, as I understand, that he didn't write his full name on the exam paper. He just put C. Kelly instead of Craig Kelly. Other than that, he would have got the full 100%. So, but Mr. Brose, no, he's not leaving the county. Okay.
There's going to be a rumble in the parking lot after this.
Yeah, you can see that. But congratulations to Craig on behalf of the DMP committee and for that hard work.
Thank you, sir.
Well
Much
done.
All right. I think that's enough stroking of Craig's ego. All right. All right, we'll move on. The reallocation of the capital budget for the 6-burner stove, etc. All right. The additional full-time PSW positions. Oh boy, I got a flurry of interest there. I'm going to go Councillor Brose, Councillor Donahue, Councillor Doncaster.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to say that I totally am in support of this initiative and the business case that goes with it. I think we have certainly seen throughout the province of Ontario as well as Quebec the challenge that long-term care is having with not only recruiting staff, but retaining staff, and also trying to prevent outbreaks of COVID within the long-term care facilities. Congratulations to Shelley and her crew and her team for keeping COVID at bay outside of our long-term care homes. And I really think that this will help as far as maintaining that level of excellence in our homes, and certainly also help, I think, in not only attracting but retaining our employees. Thank you.
Well said. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to repeat the comments from yesterday at Health Committee. Certainly, committee and council will be aware of a great number of innovations that Ms. Sheedy has been driving with respect to PSWs now for the last 4 years. And certainly I'll commend also Mr. Beakley has played a role in some of that innovation as well. It is, as I had indicated yesterday, now from the start of the millennium, we've been talking about the shortage of staff generally, that we have an approach to the 4 hours that has been the target, at least since the Sharkey report in the aughts. This is overdue. I think it is certainly even consistent with the experience with the butterfly. That model unto itself has assisted in employee retention. It has, as part of the conversion of long-term care, if you will. It is long overdue in my estimation, and I think is very innovative and will have my absolute support.
Thank you for that. Councillor Doncaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Recognizing that understanding the full budgeting or the full liability that we have in that, I'm wondering if the numbers, what are the values we're budgeting for these additional positions?
Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Doncaster. We typically budget between 6 to 8 days per full-time employee. So you're probably better to do the math on that than me, but we'll certainly point that out when we come to the budget process for 2021. But seeing the maximum exposure, I'm confident that we can, knowing we won't have to budget that full amount, we will be able to find a place for it without impacting, you know, our other frontline services.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to pick up on Councillor Doncaster's question. So it has not been part of our budgeting process to budget the full number of sick days eligible. So this is a worst case scenario, that it would be an anticipation that upon moving from part-time to full-time, it would trigger perhaps a full utilization, which seems to be unlikely given our experience in budgeting 6 to 8. And I think every year that I've been here now having a surplus at the 2 homes. So I think that is absolutely a worst case scenario.
Agreed. All right, anything further on the PSWs? Oh, hi, Bruce. Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of committee. Just to make the observation that Shelley has a fairly diligent program in both homes as it relates to attendance management. And she manages attendance on a regular ongoing basis as it relates to her staff. So where there are flags of patterning or otherwise, she's pretty quick to catch that with her management team. Just to add that value, please.
Thank you for that. Excellent information from everyone. All right, anything further? All right, so I will pass this back over to Paul and we will go into resolutions, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The first recommendation, item 5. If I may, Chair, I'll read the recommendation first.
Please.
The staff continue to evaluate electronic meetings and the provisions outlined in the procedural bylaw to determine their effectiveness, and further that staff be directed to survey members of council for any concerns that they may have with respect to electronic meetings, and further that staff provide the results of this survey to the March 2021 meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee, and further that staff undertake a cost-benefit analysis of the various electronic meeting platforms, i.e. Zoom, Microsoft Teams.
Thank you for that.
The background. Oh, sorry.
let me get a mover and seconder first of all to get it on the floor. Moved by the warden, second by Councillor Hunt. All right, go ahead, Paul.
I believe it was at the last meeting of County Council that Councillor Donahue, I believe it was, mentioned the possibility of creating an ad hoc committee to review the electronic meetings provisions of the procedural bylaw. In reviewing that, the staff recommendation would be that we get through a little bit more of the COVID-19 issue and then get a better feel for where we are. And at that point, consider that. But in the meantime, we put this resolution in the report so that we could continue to assess it and again, collect those concerns that are being raised by elected and then bring that back to council for further discussion.
Thank you, Paul. All right, discussion on this item. Yes, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Morrow. Right now, I believe that you have to be in Ontario unless you're on county business, if out of province on county business. I'm wondering if a councillor is on holidays and out of the country, can you still participate in a council meeting, but perhaps not vote? Like for me personally, I do miss one meeting a year, but I would like to still attend it by Zoom. Is there some way that that is possible?
So right now, though, if I may, Chair?
Yes, please.
Through you to Councillor Donahue, or sorry, to Councillor Hunt. The way it is written right now, no, you could not participate in the electronic meeting. We would have to amend the procedural bylaw to do that. The Municipal Act would permit us to do that should we amend our procedural bylaw, but it is based on the wording that is currently in the procedural bylaw. I suspect that will be one of the things that council will have a vigorous debate about in the future when we bring it back in March. But it is something I believe that all of council should consider and vote on. And that would be one of the issues that based on the direction of county council, we would either amend the procedural bylaw or leave the current wording in. But again, that is, I think, probably the one issue that will be the most contentious when we bring it forward in March for further discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donahue, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity from Mr. Morrow, from this we are to infer that it is the opinion of staff that perhaps that is premature at this point to consider standing up an ad hoc, but perhaps that would be upon some investigations merited for a discussion in 2021. Given that, and I certainly am prepared to accept that, I know that there's a great deal of field work, investigative work going to be required. But I think in order to accommodate that, if it might not be more reasonable to advance the March 2021 by 1 month to February of 2021, it is astonishing, particularly in COVID time, how fast time seems to be getting by, that it might be valuable to gather that those survey information from council probably in 2020 for collation and presentation in February rather than March.
I actually wonder about the March. Thank you. I actually wondered about the March deadline as well. I was thinking February, and when I read this, I sort of had the same question. Paul?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, through you to Councillor Donahue. I have no concerns with the February. Really, we put March in because, we're going to go through November, reassessing where we are with COVID. December is the inaugural meeting. January will be essentially be the budget workshop series. So that will be January. February, we could do it, but typically it's a bit of a month to regroup. We picked March knowing that the procedural bylaw provisions will sunset in June. So that gives us March, April, May, June. It's almost 4 months in advance of the provisions sunsetting. So I'm fine either way. It just, there was some rationale as to March because it backs it off 4 months from the June sunset provisions in the procedural bylaw. But I'm fine either way.
Councillor Donahue.
Madam Chair, as it is in the recommended resolution that has been circulated, distributed, I would propose or make a motion rather that the recommendation be amended, that the survey results be provided at the February 2021 meeting.
Can I do a friendly amendment?
I believe you should still have a seconder for the amendment and vote on it as an amendment.
Okay, so do I have a seconder for the amendment? Well, no, we should be voting on the first one, right?
No, we should vote on the amendment. Once the amendment's put on the floor, that's the primary. So Councillor Donahue's put a motion on the floor and that should be dealt with first.
Okay, is there a seconder to bring this back in February? Councillor Hunt. Oh. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Oh, okay. We have a tie.
The motion fails.
Okay, so we'll go back and vote on the original, the March 2021. Like, I wouldn't want to see it go any longer than that. So I have a mover and seconder for the March 2021 deadline. Can all in favor? Yeah, I guess I'm voting on that too. Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right, and the addendum.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The addendum item number 6, it is the, may I read the recommendation, Chair?
Please.
Recommendation that the Finance and Administration Committee direct the warden to send a letter in support of the resolution provided by the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, identifying the need for flexibility in the funding guidelines for the Safe Restart Program to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and further that the Premier, MPP Yakabuski, and the EOWC be copied on the correspondence. That is sorry.
Thank you for that. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Peckett, seconded by Councillor Brose. Discussion. Yes, Councillor Doncaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if, well, my question is around the requirements and the criteria for reporting, and, you know, acknowledging that we can't use this for capital currently. But I guess the question is, can Mr. Foss provide us with what we can use the money for and what we need to report on it? And I want to clarify something around, we've all seen lost revenue, and certainly if you have recreation facilities, you would have seen, we will have realized a significant loss in revenues. However, in the reporting, is the requirement to identify those lost revenues along with reductions in costs? Because sometimes if you're not running a program, then there are associated costs that you don't have also. Or can it just be the lost revenue reported against those funds?
I'm going to turn this over to Jeff, but I think in my own local, we're taking into consideration all revenues lost and costs associated with the pandemic. Am I correct, Jeff, or should we be reevaluating?
Thank you, Madam Madam Chair and members of Finance Committee. So we have the initial letters that we received with respect to this Safe Restart funding, but we don't have program guidelines and details and reporting templates. Of course, this issue has generated lots of discussion amongst all municipalities in Ontario, specifically within the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. The treasurers have talked about this. The wording in the letter state operating expenses and pressures that are related directly to COVID-19. So there's a general understanding by all of us that revenue losses would certainly be eligible for applying this funding against to offset your revenue losses. I guess I'd be somewhat cautious because it seems like Councillor Doncaster's question speaks to, yeah, we've had revenue losses in our recreation programs, but potentially we don't have operating expenses with respect to those recreation programs. So can we maximize the amount of funding that we're applying, you know, by offsetting the revenues without regard to, yeah, our operating costs were a lot lower. I'd be careful around this until we really specifically see the guidelines and the reporting template. My sense is they're going to want to have a look at incremental operating expenses and those incremental revenue losses. So put very plainly, I think we'd have to tread very carefully about trying to gross up our revenue losses without having to look at offsetting expenditure reductions. I think it's going to be the incremental impact to our organizations because of COVID-19. So I would think we probably would have to take into account those savings that we have because we don't have operating costs. So what is really the net loss that we're experiencing in for example, recreation programs? You know, until we see the details, and the devil's always in the details, I think that would be probably at least the advice that I would be presenting to you know, my colleagues at the County of Renfrew with respect to this issue. You know, each municipality is going to have to wrestle with this on their own until we see some very specific guidelines. I did attend the Municipal Finance Officers virtual conference a number of weeks ago. This issue was raised in the Q&A session, had lots of buzz around this issue. You know, and I think there's a lot of unanswered questions by the ministry representatives who were there at MFOA, other than specifically saying that capital was excluded, that it was intended to offset operating losses only, and further guidelines are yet to come. Not sure if that's helpful or not, Madam Chair, but that's kind of where we're at until we see the details in the guidelines.
I think you're right in saying we need to tread lightly, and the devil's always in the details. Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. We have spoken to Minister Yakubuski about this issue. Again, my contention has always been that would take the council chambers, for example. Yes, we to be operational, we will have to have, there's capital in definition, but it's operational in nature. So the renovations, the addition of equipment, while they're considered capital, we can't operate unless we do those. So, you know, the letter that, you know, we would like to send to Minister Clark is just identifying that yes, it will be operational eventually, but we can't operate without some capital expenditures. The other thing that I think is worthy of note is that phase 2, which I understand phase 2 of this is supposed to be, you know, potential for capital. The deadline is October the 30th. So, and in Minister Clark's letter, it does say that, you know, municipalities may request an extension to November the 6th. But either way, I think, you know, today we probably need to make a recommendation that will go to County Council, whether or not we want to, in fact, apply for phase 2 funding as well.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, I was hoping that I could address the phase 2 piece, and that's why the letter is attached. I would just like to read a paragraph from the phase 2 to give you a sense of whether or not we would be successful. May I proceed with that, Chair?
Yes, please.
So just if you draw your attention to page 2, the first paragraph, it says, one of the requirements is a council resolution requesting financial assistance under phase 2. I want to emphasize that councils are responsible for assessing the financial situation of their municipalities and proceeding with an application under phase 2 only if further assistance is needed to address COVID-19 pressures in 2020. Well, we have $2.78 million in 2020, so it would be very hard to make that case for phase 2. The letter goes on to say municipalities that cannot demonstrate 2020 COVID financial pressures in excess of their phase 1 funding allocation will not be considered for funding under phase 2. It says in addition to a resolution, council, a reporting template must be completed by the municipal treasurer as part of the municipality's phase 2 application package. The report is designed to provide an overall picture of the municipality's 2020 financial position and information about service adjustments, use of reserves, and other measures being taken to manage COVID-19 operating impacts. It says our government will only allocate funds to only those municipalities that need additional financial assistance. It's tough for us to make that case right now. Chair, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Hunt and then the warden, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've, within our municipality, we've had a number of discussions with the office regarding the use of phase 1 funding. And I do have a finance and admin meeting this afternoon to further clarify this, but what I've been told so far is that we can use phase 1 for capital as well, but if we do use it for capital, we definitely cannot apply for phase 2. So I just put that out there. Apparently, I'll know better this afternoon, but in a number of discussions, they said if you apply for phase 2, that there'll be a very detailed review of how you use the money in phase 1. But if you're not, and we did mention using it for audio equipment for our council chambers and so on, and it seemed like they were receptive to that. I don't know if we have anything in writing, but if anyone is interested, and if we do have more information, I certainly can share that.
Thank you. Warden.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple of things. The likelihood of us getting money in phase 2 is probably 0. But it is something, again, that I thought that committee should at least discuss today. I know Mr. Foss has had some conversations with people around whether or not we can use the 2.78 million for capital. I don't think, unless something has changed, Mr. Foss, that we really knew exactly if that was going to be an option. Again, when I referenced the conversation I had with Minister Yakubuski, he was going to take our request to Minister Clark as well. So it's, if we do send this letter, which I think we really should send, just for nothing else other than clarification. At this point, we're not asking for more money. We haven't identified that we need more money. We just want some flexibility in the money that they have given us so that we can operate properly.
Jeff, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The warden was bang on with the comments that I would make with respect to this issue so far. In fact, I think it was the warden's initiatives that really garnered support amongst the EOWC membership to support the resolutions from all of our municipalities asking for these funds to be used for capital purposes. And it's because of the fact that the ministry has not been crystal clear with us. I understand from Councillor Hunt's comments that, potentially they're talking with some ministry representatives that might see their way clear to using some of it for some minor capital. But what we really need is some clarity. And I think by supporting this resolution and sending this on through to Minister Clark to get some clarity around this would be beneficial to all of us. But I can tell you there were 400 finance officers that were attending the virtual MFOA conference a couple of weeks ago. We put this question directly to the ministry representatives, and we're told directly at that time that it was for operating expenses and pressures only. And so capital was clearly not identified as being eligible. But that's not a minister speaking. Those would be staff members from the ministry that were attempting to answer our questions on this virtual conference. So by sending this, supporting this resolution, maybe we can convince the minister to provide some clarity. And as the warden had said, we're not looking for extra money in 2020, but we're looking for some flexibility on how we can spend some of the money that we have.
Thank you for that. I think it's imperative that we get clarity on this. Yeah, I'm happy to support it. Is there anything further on this recommendation? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Several points. With respect to the overall initiative, I think it's an outstanding motion by the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and I think absolutely we would be behind that. With respect to what perhaps ministry staff might have suggested, I'll draw to committee's attention about 2 weeks ago, there was a staffer within the West Ontario Health team that distributed a memo to various assessment centers in Eastern Ontario advising that they were severely going to reduce the number of tests. The very next day, the minister said, oh, that wasn't supposed to be sent out at all. That's not what we meant. So we're in a very dynamic environment. Every day the information changes. What I would certainly suggest from a capital perspective or an operating pressures perspective, I cannot conceive that here in the township office where I now find myself, I would have likely installed a plexiglass barrier at the front counter, and yet we have done that. And I cannot conceive that that is anything but operational, even though it was a capital purchase. Now, I'm certainly sensitive to what Mr. Foss has said also with respect to interpretation, and down through the ages, it's been interpretation of texts, both sacred and secular, that has often led to issue on what does it mean. So I think we do need to wait for that. However, I certainly am prepared to view pressures as something that might be separate from operations. Having said that, speaking to the letter from Minister Clark, at the outset, I have to say that he and I have a substantially different notion of what a significant level of funding is. The $695 million from phase one is in fact 17.4% of the $4 billion. Certainly in my world, 17% is not a significant level of funding. I do, however, have to acknowledge that I was considering whether there may be allocations for public health, but in the very first paragraph of Minister Clark's letter, he identifies that there are 4 streams. 2 of the streams delivered through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, 1 of them for public health delivered through the Ministry of Health, and 1 for transit being administered by the Ministry of Transportation. So I do take a great deal of comfort that there is funding going to be flowing through to public health agencies, and certainly will endeavor at the end of this month to inquire at the Board of Health what is the status of that, because certainly as committee will very much be aware, I'm sure, of the substantial outlay of resources in the midst of the pandemic.
Thank you. Anything further? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that carries. Can I get a mover and seconder for the administration report, please? Moved by Councillor Sweet, second by Councillor Donahue. Anything further on the administration report? All in favor? And with that, guys, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break. That was my dad that called. I think I've got a bit of a family emergency. So if Sean, if you could just take us down for literally 5 minutes, I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for that brief intermission. We're going to turn it over to Jeff with the department report for finance.
Chair, if I may, Connie, can you confirm we had a vote on that resolution?
We did.
Yes, we did, Paul. Sorry.
Okay, good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Are you questioning my chairing abilities?
Never, Chair, I'm questioning my sanity.
All right, Fossey, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of the Finance Committee. No, kind of a lighter package for you this month. No resolutions or bylaws, really just information items. So item number 1, 2021 budget schedule, and with the approval last month of our guidelines, staff have been busy working through the development of the 2021 budget process. Wanted to bring one item to your attention that really was a carryover from the meeting that we held in October of last year, and that's with respect to our shared cost agreement with the City of Pembroke with respect to long-term care and the municipal support that we provide to long-term care. And following a number of years where our cost sharing is based on resident population as at December the 31st, and following a couple of years where the resident population share between the city and the county had some pretty significant swings that resulted in some pretty significant operating expense or savings. We reached out to the City of Pembroke asking if they would consider a freeze to the cost sharing percentage for a couple of years. And we began this discussion in 2019, and we asked for them to consider a freeze for the 2020 and the 2021 budget years, freezing at the 2019 rate of 30.63% of the cost being paid by the City of Pembroke. And their council agreed to that proposal. I bring that to your attention. 2021 was selected by the City of Pembroke because under our 1971 cost sharing agreement, this agreement can be opened every 5 years, which brings us to 2021 for renegotiation. And the city has not necessarily put us on notice, but has indicated that they would like to explore a renegotiation of this cost sharing agreement. And so I just want to make this committee aware that for 2021, we will use 30.63 again as the city's share of the cost, but that we may be open to a negotiation process with the city sometime during the 2021 calendar year. Item number 2, committee, of course, will recall that as part of the 2020 budget process, we did budget for the finance manager position. We did advertise for that and conducted some interviews early in the year, but due to the sort of temporarily hold that was put in place because of all the COVID-related precautions, we didn't really come to ground on the end of this process until later on in the summer. So with that, I am very pleased to announce that today on our call, we have joining us Mr. Daniel Burke. He has accepted the position of finance manager for the County of Renfrew and began his activity as work with us on October the 1st. So we're very happy to have Daniel join us. Congratulations. And that's a face that you will see, if not in person, at least on Zoom, as we kind of move forward with these committee meetings in the future. Item number 3, just the Provincial Offences Court workload. And item number 4, more provincial offences updates for you. Our POA manager, Ms. Poole, participated in some video conference meetings with the Regional Senior Justice of the Peace, LeBlanc, as well as the Administrative Justice of the Peace, Herb Kraling, to discuss the reopening of our POA court by audio conference only. And as a result of those discussions, we set forward 5 dates in the month of October where we are attempting to clear out the backlog. And of course, March the 16th, we suspended all court activities in person. And we've had a number of subsequent changes to the dates with respect to appearing in court or even enforcing POA court matters. And so there are 6 months worth of backlogs in front of us. So we had our very first teleconference court session scheduled for October the 5th, scheduling 3 matters every 15 minutes before the justice, which would allow us to deal with about 70 matters in a court sitting day. And I'm very pleased to advise that the process worked very, very well for us. And we did deal with approximately 70 matters on October the 5th and ended just before 4 o'clock. I have also attached as Appendix 1 an order dated September the 10th from the Chief Justice of the Ontario Court of Justice, extending the timelines under the Act to December the 1st. As well, we have Appendix number 2 advising of some date changes with respect to in-person court matters. I can tell you that as recent as yesterday, we received another notice from the Ministry of the Attorney General advising that all in-person POA matters, those would be traffic tickets and offenses under provincial legislation, scheduled until January the 22nd, 2021, will need to be rescheduled and do not attend court. I think this is the 7th time that the ministry has reached out with a date deferral for us. And so even the report that is before you today is outdated as of yesterday, and there will be no in-person court matters dealt with until at least January of 2021. Thank you, Madam Chair. That is the end of my report.
Thank you very much. We'll move back to information item number 1, the 2021 budget schedule. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, and of course I know that there will be further efforts expended in 2021. I just went back to the very first budget workshop that I sat on. There's been an enormous volatility in that cost share arrangement. Just for committee's information, in the year prior to my taking my seat in the council chamber, it was 59.75%. The following year, 2015, it was 64.85%. I'm wondering, but without getting into the details of where we may be headed, but just if Mr. Foss could identify what has driven that enormous volatility.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So our cost sharing agreement is essentially based on where the residents are coming from when they are admitted to both of our long-term care facilities. And so we certainly have had historically, and this is probably going back some 10 years, we have had the situation where individuals who were County of Renfrew residents, as opposed to City of Pembroke residents, who may have moved into the City of Pembroke into a hospital environment, or perhaps some sort of a care home or a supportive care home, and from there moved to a long-term care facility. So when we recorded their address prior to admission into long-term care, the address may have been a Pembroke address. And so the City of Pembroke, over the last number of years, have voiced this concern as being not fair to their position. And so we've done our very best over the last number of years to ensure that actually one of the questions that we asked prior to admission is, where have you paid your taxes for the majority of your life? And tried to get a sense of, tried to avoid the situation where they moved from a a small community outside of the city of Pembroke into Pembroke for a short period of time, and then were transferred into long-term care. So one of the reasons why the percentages for the city's share has been coming down somewhat would be that particular issue. But other than that, it's really just, we have a significant number of admissions each year to both of those homes. And so where those individuals are applying from, where they live currently, that's really a matter of 1 year is very, very different from the next. So we try and capture that through that admission information at December 31st every year. Hope that answers in part some of the question. I see my colleague Shelley has some other comments that she may like to make as well.
Yes, but you covered that very well, Jeff. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Shelley.
He did, Madam Chair. Thank you. The only thing I would add to that is that for the first 20 years that I worked in long-term care, the average number of deaths in a year was about 30. For the last 5 years, it's been about 60. So it has doubled. And so that explains some of the fluctuations year to year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, Councillor Sweet. Bob, you're on mute.
Chair, just to support what Jeff has said, this has been an ongoing problem going back not just 8 years. This goes back for as long as I've been sitting here. So it goes back 18, 20 years. And in fairness to County Council, we have supplied various scenarios to try and satisfy the arrangement that was put in place in 1971, up to and including residential situations, which in some cases would be 2 weeks because they went into a hospital from, we'll say, my own community, came out, ended up in Bonneshare Manor or Miramichi Lodge or wherever, up to including 6 months residency, taxation, and really, you can see the city of Pembroke's point of view. If a resident in my community has lived in there for 70 years, and all of a sudden in 2 weeks, they end up in Miramichi Lodge, they become, quote, a resident of the city of Pembroke. That is virtually not fair. However, we've tried, as Shelley has alluded to, and as Jeff has alluded to, tried over the years to try and come up with some sort of scenario to level the playing field and make it fair for both sides. I think this puts a little bit of coolness in this particular situation going forward, and hopefully staff can work with the city to try and develop some sort of program that's fair and equitable, not only to the residents of the county of Renfrew, but the city of Pembroke.
Thank you for that. Anything further on one? Councillor Donoghue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly thank you to all who have spoken. Mr. Foss was very comprehensive. It seems perhaps then that we have continued to adjust, amend the formula. It seems that I'm assuming that this formula probably goes back to 1970 to when the city became a separated city. The unfortunate thing, as with so many things, it seems that perhaps careful enough consideration may not have been given to the funding formula at that time, because it does seem, particularly those 2014, 2015, does seem to be particularly outsized proportion of Pembroke residents, given Pembroke's relative position and relative population of the county generally. So I would very much look forward to a formula that is fair and equitable to both parties, because it seems like it's been challenged. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on one? Then we will move to two. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all. Some of you I already know, but thank you. And I'm sure I'll be working with each of you in the future.
Welcome to the county of Renfrew. Sorry, James. Yes, Councillor Brose.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I also want to congratulate Daniel on his move to county. I think everybody who has an opportunity to meet and or work with Daniel will find that he's very professional, very capable, and due in no small part to the excellent training he received at North Oglona Wilberforce.
Well said. Anything further on 2? So we'll move on to 3, the POA workload. And number 4, the court update. Councillor Doncaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question with respect to the number of items that were dealt with virtually. How many items would we normally do in a day in an in-person court setting?
You stole that right out of my brain. I wondered the same thing.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. You know, the volume really of POA matters in our main court in Pembroke and Renfrew, Killaloe, and Deep River those issues have come before this committee over the last number of years. And we do have a couple of courts, prior to COVID that were overflowing with, upwards of 150 matters that are scheduled in a court. Now, a lot of those matters are first appearance, so they can be dealt with very quickly. This particular situation in October were early resolution matters where, the defendant had already discussed their situation with our prosecutor and had come to an administrative agreement, and those agreements were brought forward to the Justice of the Peace to be heard. So this was essentially all early resolution matters. There was no trials. There were no other matters that were brought forward. So really, as I mentioned, an attempt to kind of clear up this 6-month backlog of a lot of these items. And it looks like we'll continue to use this process kind of moving forward until, as we are told now, January of 2021, where we may have the potential of opening up courts in person once again, which will open up all of the other types of charges that could be dealt with within the POA court. So we do have, as I mentioned, Pembroke and Renfrew courts had been prior to COVID somewhat overflowing in their volumes that were scheduled, and not all matters, were able to be dealt with within the scheduled court time.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, can I get a mover and seconder for the treasurer's report, please? Moved by Councillor Hunt, second by Councillor Donahue. Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And I will turn this over to Bruce, and his report begins on page 18.
So Madam Chair and Madam Warden and members of committee, item number 1 on the HR report, just as a courtesy and as a reminder as we enter into the budget season and everything else about the commitment that was made relative to council remuneration, just as a reminder more than anything else for your reference. Item number 2 centers around services to municipalities. So bringing to your attention various projects that I'm undertaking, working with local municipalities as it relates to their challenges and things that are HR related, just so you have some sense of the things that we're working on. And then from a labor relations point of view, just status about where we are with bargaining, contract negotiations. So as it relates to Miramichi Lodge, we've done conciliation. We are off to interest arbitration. We are with the paramedics still in negotiations, still trying to get closer relative to the challenges Mike has with staffing and his staffing model and the issues that center around that very specifically. As it relates to Bonnechere Manor, we've got conciliation on October 29th, and we'll see how that unfolds and where that goes. As it relates to the social housing group, we did achieve a 1-year agreement, and that was ratified by the union on September 29th. And I know this month through the social services group, they're looking to bring to county council ratification for that one-year agreement. And then as it relates to ONA collective bargaining itself, we haven't set dates for bargaining at the moment based on our schedules in terms of where we sit at the moment. But we do know that the Central Hospital has negotiated a 2-year deal with the Ontario Nurses Association, but they were bound by Bill 125 or 124, I think it was, the 1 and 1%. So that continues to unfold. So that's where we sit relative to bargaining. As it relates to social housing and the 1-year deal, 1-year agreement we got with them, we were looking at a 1.5% increase in terms of wages. We made a minor change to the boot allowance, but other than that, everything was ultimately carried forward. And then item number 4 is just a staffing update with the transitions that have been going on within human resources. And of course, the transfer of Caitlin Doherty over to the emergency services group under the new position under HR service specialist, if you will. And then backfilling the position that I currently have vacant for HR coordinator with Angela Keel, who backfilled for Caitlin while Caitlin was off on her maternity pregnancy leave for the last number of months. So just to kind of keep you abreast of where we are relative to staffing in the HR department at the moment. And then the last item, which was item number 5, was just to bring to your attention that we're pleased that Beverly Sato has been approved to introduce the influenza vaccines for this fall. And she will be announcing those initiatives as it relates to her clinic. And those are the items for the HR report, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. All right. We will go back to number 1, County Council remuneration. Number 2, the services to municipalities. On behalf of my municipality, Bruce, I'd like to thank you for your help. Number 3, the labor relations. Number 4, the staffing update. And number 5, the influenza program. The report as a whole. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Peckett. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, sorry, I'm working on an iPad here. Any new business? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Almost got away from. Just in
Not the warden.
Sorry, Madam Chair, with respect to the warden, actually. So I have been graciously asked by our current warden to be a nominator for the ensuing year, 2021. Just upon reviewing the form for the nomination of the warden, it does seem anachronistic at this point. Right at the very end, the last sentence says that the warden essentially shall hold their seat until his successor shall be elected. And perhaps bringing that to the attention of Madam Warden in this instance, she had suggested that perhaps I bring this forward as new business to F&A for there to be an amendment to or a revision, let us say, to the form for nomination of the warden. I don't know if that would require a motion of the committee. I will certainly defer to Mr. Morrow on that.
Chair, through you to Councillor Donahue. Wow, that's quite the echo. If I could just get direction to staff from committee and we will make that change.
I would just ask for a thumbs up to change that.
I will acknowledge that I did provide to, I do not believe I distributed it to Mr. Morrow. I distributed it to Warden Robinson, to her seconder, Councillor Brose, and also to the clerk, Rose Brunts. So there is a template wherein I have made that change. So if that could just be incorporated, very much appreciated.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, we have no closed meeting. Oh, is there any other new business? Sorry, guys and gals. The date of our next meeting is Thursday, November 12th. And can I get a mover and seconder to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Hunt. All in favor? We are adjourned.
It is officially the shortest FNA under your chair
Shortest effing what?
FNA meeting.